Thrilled to welcome Symphony 3 to the Local Government News Roundup family. If you're a local council, you know how challenging it can be to manage data across all your different systems. That's where Symphony 3 comes in. They've developed Smart Glue, a platform that integrates over 55 council systems, automating data flow without the need for manual work. It turns confusion into simplicity. With Smart Glue, councils save time, reduce errors and empower staff to focus on what really matters. Their clients see a real difference, up to 20% boost in productivity, with savings of over $30,000 per integration every year. Symphony 3 helps councils work smarter, faster and more efficiently, all while better supporting the communities they serve. Councillors embroiled in a parliamentary shutdown. A cancelled funding agreement under review. IPART considers a public hearing on a controversial rate increase proposal. A call to relax restrictions on dogs in pubs. A council sets the record straight on property sales due to rates arrears. A court ruling puts 4 seats on Adelaide City Council in jeopardy. And sweeping changes for UK councils could see them stripped of planning powers. Hello, I'm Chris Eddy, back with the Local Government News Roundup. It's Monday, the 10th of March. Also today, I'm joined by Alice Jeffcott from Market Creations Agency to talk about how they're helping councils across Western Australia and beyond to meet new obligations for live streaming and public registers. The Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, the national broadcaster on all things local government, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. A Tawong Shire councillor was banned from the Victorian Parliament for 7 days following an outburst during discussion about hospital plans for the Albury-Wodonga border region. The Border Mail reported that Councillor Denise Anderson told the minister people are dying, prompting the ban, and Albury Deputy Mayor Jess Callaghan yelled shame at the minister. The outbursts followed a demonstration on the steps of the Parliament. Doctors from the region reportedly engaged in shouting at Minister Mary-Ann Thomas, leading to question time being suspended while the public gallery was cleared. A decision to terminate a $285,000 partnership with an environmental group is under review by Ballarat City Council. The decision to revoke the funding of Breeze followed allegations of anti-Semitic and discriminatory social media posts by a former board member. The council confirmed to the Ballarat Courier that an appeal against the decision had been received and a process of assessing that request to overturn the decision was underway. A Mulgrave food business operator has been fined $55,500 and ordered to pay $28,000 in costs after being found guilty of 21 charges under the Food Act, including operating without registration and breaching food safety standards. The case highlighted the operator's aggressive behaviour towards Monash City Council officers and complete disregard for food safety laws, leading to the business's closure and a strong condemnation from Magistrate Megan Keogh. The magistrate was complimentary towards the council's EHOs, highlighting their professionalism and the calm nature in which they undertook their duties. Baw Baw Shire Council has successfully prosecuted a woman operating an unregistered animal shelter with 46 unregistered animals in poor conditions. The case resulted in court-ordered penalties, including a 5-year good behaviour bond and significant fines. The council encourages residents to report any concerns about animal welfare through their hotline or anonymous reporting system. Hume Council will explore options for hosting or funding a small-scale carols event in the southern suburbs, following community feedback indicating interest from multiple locations, including Broadmeadows, Craigieburn and Greenvale. The Star Weekly reported that the aim is to provide an alternative to the main Christmas carols event at Anzac Park, addressing a lack of dedicated celebrations in South Hume since 2013. Yarra City Council has implemented a new process requiring a formal council decision for the removal of angled parking, with exceptions for works that don't reduce parking or temporary emergency changes. The move is in response to community concerns about preserving angled parking for local businesses and residents, particularly when considering proposals for footpath widening or pedestrian and cycling safety improvements. Brimbank Council has opposed a planned social housing development in Albion that would replace two old public housing homes with a modern 19-unit apartment building. The Star Weekly reported that the council holds concerns about non-compliance with planning schemes and missing mandatory information. While acknowledging the growing need for social and affordable housing, the council has requested specific conditions be implemented if the development proceeds. Homes Victoria is continuing to engage with stakeholders to refine the design. And Murrindindi Shire Council has acknowledged the Victorian Government's response to the 2022 flood inquiry, which proposes improvements to emergency coordination and flood management strategies. While welcoming some aspects of the response, the Council has expressed concerns about insufficient commitments to long-term infrastructure resilience, Lake Eildon flood management and support for flood-affected residents. More news in brief. Filming on a new series of The Block has commenced in Daylesford. Hepburn Shire Council says it's excited about the opportunities the show will bring to the Shire as it highlights the area's unique offerings to a national audience. Voting for the President and Director positions on the MAV board has closed. Counting will commence tomorrow morning, with results expected to be officially declared by midday. And consumer spending in Greater Geelong last year reached $6.1 billion, with the biggest shopping day on Monday the 23rd of December at $29.7 million. Figures analysed by the city show online shopping continues to grow in popularity, with residents spending a record $3.5 billion in 2024, a 10.3% increase on the previous year. ABC News has reported on the significant barriers to growth that small Australian towns are facing due to inadequate infrastructure funding. Many say essential services like sewerage, water supply and power systems are at capacity, preventing new housing developments despite strong demand from potential residents, including healthcare workers and teachers. The situation is particularly acute in towns like Kingston, southeast in South Australia, where the population has remained stagnant at 1,600 for a decade, and in Yarriambiack in Victoria, where recently the council learned it had missed out on government funding for infrastructure to enable the construction of 52 houses. It found out about that through a media announcement. Councils say current government funding mechanisms aren't suitable for smaller communities, with minimum grant thresholds of $25 million far exceeding their needs. Council leaders warn that without infrastructure investment to support housing growth, towns risk losing essential services and missing opportunities to attract new residents. More on that from ABC News. Link to the story in the show notes, which you'll find at lgnewsroundup.com. This is the Roundup for Monday, March the 10th, 2025, a long weekend public holiday for some of you. And the Roundup is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, with support from Symphony 3. Consultation on North Sydney Council's proposed 87% rate increase has been extended by 1 week, and IPART is reportedly considering a request for a public hearing on the proposal. The North Sydney Sun reported that the council's application has drawn scrutiny after allegations of timeline discrepancies and omitted community feedback. It says the council's submission was uploaded to IPART within minutes of a controversial council meeting last month, prompting questions about whether public input was adequately considered before finalising its application. In a move that could see more wagging tails in local establishments, North Sydney Council is set to debate relaxing restrictions on dogs in pubs. Councillors Jessica Keane and Effie Carr are leading the charge, proposing more discretionary enforcement of current regulations that limit four-legged friends to outdoor areas only. Under existing food safety laws, dogs are permitted in outdoor spaces like beer gardens, but are banned from indoor dining areas. Several popular venues already welcome canine customers in their outdoor sections. The Mossman Collective reported on a local poll that shows strong community support for the change, although some residents have raised hygiene concerns. The motion is set to be discussed at this week's council meeting. City of Coffs Harbour councillors are divided over a proposal to change council meetings from fortnightly to monthly. The News of the Area reported on a successful move from some councillors to keep meetings at fortnightly until mid-year, while the community is consulted on the idea of moving to monthly, which has the support of Mayor Nikki Williams. As the Muswellbrook region faces the loss of approximately 12,000 resource-related jobs by 2030, Mayor Jeff Drayton is calling for urgent action from both major political parties. 3,600 direct mining jobs are expected to be lost from the closure of BHP's Mount Arthur coal mine and Glencore's Mangoola mine. Councillor Drayton wants to see industrial and manufacturing hubs developed on former mining land, emphasising that planning and discussion must be replaced with definitive commitments to protect the region's economic future. A 400-megawatt battery storage system has been proposed near Armidale, which will connect renewable energy projects to the existing grid while addressing community concerns about noise and aesthetics through enhanced barriers. The Armidale Express reported that the project has received strong support from Armidale Regional Council, which has secured significant community benefit sharing arrangements worth $850 per megawatt annually. Leeton Shire Council has partnered with the University of South Australia on a research project focused on improving migrant and refugee settlement support in rural communities. The council is contributing $6,000 to the initiative. In the week of International Women's Day, Central Coast Council last week highlighted its credentials as having one of the highest representations of female beach safety personnel in New South Wales. 17 of 92 lifeguards are female, contributing to making beaches more welcoming and safer for all visitors. And this week's Campbelltown City Council agenda has drawn the attention of local media, with 10 councillors submitted notices of motion up for debate, according to the South West Voice. The 10 motions shared across 5 councillors cover a range of issues, including hospital wait times, a koala expo, wheelie bin stickers, and a request for a report on the cost of an International Mother Language Day flag-raising ceremony held last month. We'll head up into Queensland. We'll stay away from ex-tropical cyclone Alfred news. Plenty of other sources to bring you the latest on what's happening there. Here's some other Queensland council stories. North Burnett Regional Council has moved to correct recent media reports about property sales due to rates arrears, which it described as inaccurate and misleading. The council says it has no immediate plans to sell any properties. It said only 20 properties, 0.32% of total rateable properties, have outstanding balances for 3 or more years, and any potential sales would only be considered after following a ratepayer-centred process with multiple opportunities for payment arrangements. Bundaberg Regional Council has cancelled its planned bin inspection and tagging program. Bundaberg today reported the council has made the call after receiving negative public feedback and determined it was unnecessary given existing monitoring systems. The council had received full state government funding for the campaign, but will continue its regular waste education activities and bin monitoring through existing camera systems. And Cairns Council has thrown its support behind a scheme that would raise around $16 million annually to invest in visitor infrastructure and marketing. The Cairns Post reported that a 2.5% per night visitor levy is proposed to take the burden off ratepayers. The statewide opt-in scheme would be used for sustainable funding of the tourism industry. In other news in brief, Campbelltown City Council CEO Lindy Dietz has been recognised with the Jennifer Westacott AO Woman of Western Sydney Award. The award highlights the significant contributions and legacies of notable Western Sydney women, with Ms Dietz recognised as a powerful voice for the region. Tasmanian local government representatives are coming together this week for a climate change forum looking at change management, governance and communications needs to achieve ambitious climate action. The one-day forum is being held in Sandy Bay on Wednesday. And Mid Coast Council has received silver in the Green Destinations Top 100 Story Awards, recognised in the Destination Management category alongside winners from Slovenia and Laos. The achievement, which marks Council's first appearance in the awards, supports its recent Eco Destination Certificate and showcases a commitment to sustainable tourism management across the diverse Barrington Coast region. Still to come, I'm joined by a special guest to share some insights out of Western Australia with regard to the local government sector. But big news out of Adelaide first. A district court judge has found that illegal practices affected the outcome of a 2022 Adelaide City Council ward election, putting 4 council seats in jeopardy. ABC News reported on Judge Michael Burnett's ruling that unauthorised individuals had handled ballot papers during the Central Ward election, with photographic evidence showing men collecting voting papers from apartment buildings. The court identified 16 ballot papers that were not filled in by their rightful voters. The election results saw Councillor Jing Lee defeat former Councillor Alex Hyde by just 24 votes. An allegation of bribery against Councillor Lee was dismissed. Judge Burnett has invited submissions from all parties before the court makes its final decision on whether to void the 2022 Central Ward election. If that occurs, a supplementary election may need to be held, affecting 4 sitting councillors, including Deputy Lord Mayor David Elliott. Let's head down to Launceston briefly, where the city has unveiled an ambitious 15-year housing strategy to tackle the region's growing accommodation challenges. Mayor Matthew Garwood says the draft Launceston Housing Plan aims to deliver over 6,000 new dwellings by 2040 through a mix of greenfield and urban renewal projects. The comprehensive plan focuses on boosting supply, improving affordability and creating better connected neighbourhoods. Local residents will have 4 weeks to provide feedback through the council's engagement platforms. And the council has also approved a $3.9 million investment for comprehensive upgrades to the Albert Hall, including audio-visual installations, safety improvements and various structural and aesthetic enhancements, with the project scheduled to be complete in spring. The Mercury reported that questions are being asked about why the council made its decision in a confidential session. Market Creations Agency, known as MCA for short, is big in Western Australia in local government circles and looking to expand. The expansion's on in South Australia, and here to tell me about the company and what it's doing for councils around the country is Alice Jeffcott, the Director of Client Services. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Chris.
Welcome to the Roundup. Good to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I was a bit intrigued about MCA. I've got to confess, I hadn't heard of you before, and I was surprised to find that you're actually in 107 councils in Western Australia in terms of delivering their web services. That's a pretty extraordinary take-up rate, because how many councils has Western Australia got?
So Western Australia has about 139 in total, and I'll qualify that 107 includes a couple from a couple of different states and territories as well.
Right.
So the number in WA would be about 101 currently, but we have about 4 councils in the Northern Territory, 1 in South Australia and 1 in New South Wales as well to make up that 107.
Pretty big reach in the western half of the country, and I can see why you'd want to expand that. So what's the offering from MCA that's got so many Western Australian councils on board?
So Market Creations has a solution called Council Connect, and Council Connect is a local government specific digital platform for website hosting and design and development as well. So it started for council websites, corporate websites. When we all moved that shift from traditional to digital platforms, websites became a critical communication platform for local governments across Australia, but particularly in Western Australia. At the time, the West Australian Local Government Authority was looking for an organisation to roll out and support councils en masse on that transition, and essentially to make sure there's a bit of standardisation there in how councils go about building their websites and communicating with their communities. So we took on that contract in around 2013, 2014. There was about 30 local governments at that time during that transition. And since then, we've built the CMS or content management system of which the websites are built on to include over 100 different modules or widgets, features and functions, but all specific to a local government audience. So knowing the functions that a council needs to complete day to day and communicate with residents, ratepayers and businesses, we then build the technology solution for those websites to help them do that in the most streamlined and easiest way.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously hitting the mark to have so many on board. Tell me what you've done in South Australia. I think you're off and running there with the City of Salisbury.
Yeah, that's correct. So the City of Salisbury joined Council Connect midway through 2024. And interestingly, they developed an intranet site with us rather than an external website. So intranet being a platform for staff to use and access to get things that they need to perform their roles, complete payroll, access policies and procedures, and communicate with one another. So locked down to an internal system, but built really similarly to a website. They have a workforce of about 450 staff, and that was a really exciting opportunity for us as our first council in the South Australian market. It's a fringe metropolitan council, so just outside of Adelaide, I think about 40 minutes drive. And that was a fantastic project to work with them on what the needs of their locality were, what the challenges they had. So their existing intranet platform was over 10 years old, I believe, hadn't been upkept. So the information was out of date, staff weren't using it. And then that really presents both cultural challenges of how you're maintaining that morale and shared information across the organisation, but also just a communication issue of people who had different pieces of information of what was going on and when. So that was the challenge they put to us. We got in touch via a common relationship between another tech provider who was helping them build some other software applications internally and who we work with in the West Australian market, a business called ReadyTech. So that's how it came about. Over a period of 4 to 5 months, we worked with their business transformation team to build a new intranet site for them. And that's been live now for almost 6 months as our first South Australian site.
So I need to assure the audience, this is not a paid promotion for Market Content Agency. I was a bit intrigued about an agency that's got so many councils on board in one half of the country and not so much yet in the other. So thank you for explaining that. The other angle I wanted to explore with you, Alice, is a lot of change happening in WA, reforms to the legislation, the way councils need to stream meetings depending on their size, registers that they need to start putting online for CEO KPIs, for example. You're working with councils to update the technology to make those reforms possible in a seamless way?
Absolutely. So we have a really regular touch point with all of our clients, at least monthly. We're touching base with them to say, here's how your website is performing. We also get out on the road and try to visit everyone at least once a year. And for those who know the size of Western Australia, that's no small feat. There's a lot of driving to get out and see every regional council that we work with.
I can imagine.
But the benefit of doing that is we always hear firsthand from those local governments what their needs are and how we can support and respond. So you're spot on, Chris. There's recently in Western Australia been a number of changes. The first, which we heard about and responded to, was the state government's adoption of changes to council meetings. So the requirement based on size or class in Western Australia, there are 4 classes of local governments, usually based on size and population. That for council meetings, which of course we all know, agendas and minutes need to be published at certain regulatory times. In addition to that, video and live streaming or audio recordings of the meetings were going to be required for those councils. So there was a notice period that change was coming. And during that notice period, we had local governments approaching us to say, here's the change, Market Creations Agency, what does that look like for our website? How can you help? So what that does look like is we essentially have a council meetings module. So a function in the back end, one place that they go to. You can upload all your upcoming council meeting dates, including special meetings, etc., committee meetings. You can upload your agendas directly there, your minutes directly there. And essentially what we needed to do is build in that integration piece for audio and or video files. So we now have an ability to integrate directly with YouTube because the majority of the market were uploading their council meeting recordings via YouTube, a very popular video streaming platform. And that integration piece is live. So as the live meeting is happening, there's a link on their website and community members can go to access that information.
One of my bugbears, Alice, certainly on the eastern half of the country, is many councils have many different ways of streaming their meetings. You know, some use YouTube. That's the simplest. I wish they'd all do it, to be frank. Some use a more closed system where it's live while it's on, but you can't actually then go back and watch it for a couple of days at least until they upload it. So Am I right then in thinking in Western Australia, it's a common approach to the live streaming? If you've got 101 councils, they're pretty much all doing it the same way?
No, I wouldn't
No?
say that.
Oh, what a shame.
It's probably a similar approach in Western
Yeah.
Australia in that some do the live in the moment and the video upload following.
Yeah.
Others will video record, not necessarily live, but upload the video following. And then others only have a requirement for the audio. So
Yeah.
there's no video component. So it is a mixed bag,
Yeah.
partly due to the almost tiering of that legislative requirement. Other times it's for budgetary reasons. So
Right.
we don't support the councils in setting up their council chambers with whatever recording devices they need and the like. Our role is really about how to build that into the website. And from the conversations that we've had, particularly the smaller regionals can't invest in some huge tech setup in one financial year. So they're looking for a staged approach. If we've done this for this financial year, next financial year, we'll invest a little bit more in what that looks like.
Yeah. Okay. How is the pace of uptake? Is there some leeway for these councils to introduce these new requirements?
Yes. So in the case of the council meetings recording, there was, I can't remember the exact time frame, but almost a year's notice of these are the changes that are coming. Here's how you need to prepare. So that was certainly, there was time there for councillors to look at what they needed and get that in place. Now, that being said, for a lot of them, that came into effect in 2024. I'm not sure if it's the same on the East Coast, but a lot of councils in Western Australia don't have a council meeting in January, often due to that holiday period, etc.
Yep.
So February is typically the first council meeting of the year. And our website support team during that time was on had to be on the ball.
Busy time?
So there were many support requests coming in around, okay, we have the audio file. Can you just help us with what the best way to upload this information is? Run a training session so moving forward we know how to do this.
Yeah.
So they did have the tech set up there. But ultimately, when the day or day before the council meeting came around, there is a bit of crunch time of everybody across the state trying to wrap their head around a new way of the world.
Yeah. So that other issue about CEO registers of KPIs, I know that's something that's a little bit unique, I think, in Western Australia. What have you had to turn your mind to help councils give effect to those requirements?
So late in 2024, the State Government Department has put out proposed changes to the Local Government Amendment Act here in WA. And there's two components of this next tranche of changes. One are a series of new compliance registers. So there are already a number of registers that local governments need to publish on their site to declare and have transparency over certain financial spend and conflicts of interest. So declarations of gifts, exactly conflicts of interest, the declarations register, etc. So historically, Market Creations Agency, when those changes have been proposed or been adopted, we look at what the requirements are for publishing and how can we help the local government publish that information in the most streamlined way possible. Ultimately, you don't want a staff member to be spending hours and hours on governance requirements. It's important to have that information available and have that transparency, but ultimately, it's not adding to the operations of the organisation. So how can we minimise that time? What that looks like for us is we've developed a series of registers modules. So in the back end, you hop into the relevant register, all the fields are preset. It's clear which are required and which are optional. So if you don't have that information, you don't need to stress about that. When you publish that information, it gets formatted in a consistent way that can be filtered and searched across all the different registers. And in addition to that, quarterly, we then go through and check all of our local government sites and say, yep, you're using those registers correctly, or we'll flag potential compliance issues to help them overcome that. So we're really proactive in that service. So in WA, there are 4 new registers being proposed this year. It's currently out for comment, so it hasn't been formally been adopted. The 4 new registers include land leases and licenses, contracts for goods and services, grants and sponsorship arrangements, and developer contributions.
Right. So where does the CEO KPI issue fit in?
So the CEO KPI item is also being considered in this same tranche from the department. And what that is currently looking at is standardising key performance indicators for CEOs across all West Australian local government authorities. So saying that, okay, if you're appointed as a CEO, it does not matter if you were in the far northwest, Great Southern, Wheatbelt or Perth metropolitan area. These are the standard KPIs that you need to meet. They're also considering having the department select independent members to sit on CEO selection panels. So they'll almost have a pre-vetted list of candidates who sit on those panels to then be that independent body of, yes, this person is appropriate to meet the needs of this local government. They're also considering, following 10 years of continuous service as a CEO at one local government authority, the requirement to go through the recruitment process again. So essentially, You cannot just extend the contract beyond 10 years. You then need to go through that recruitment process again. Almost like I think when there's an age where your driver's license test in certain areas, you need to retake that to make sure you're still fit for the job. I think that's the rationale there behind that. But the KPI component is interesting. And from what I've heard in our conversations with local governments, there's really mixed feedback on this. And it will be interesting to see the comments that come through during this period of consultation. Because what they're proposing to do is publish not only the CEO's KPIs put upon them for the role, but their performance against them. And that, I believe, is quite unique to Western Australia, Chris. I don't know if you're aware of that adoption anywhere else.
It is unique. There's a couple of elements there that you've outlined that are a bit different. Even that centralised appointment of independents on recruitment committees, generally, to take the Victorian example, councils can have an independent and are recommended to, but the councils choose them. They don't get appointed over the top by the state. So that'll be an interesting one to watch as well. And I guess these are all things that councils need to be having in mind to how their public-facing services pick up on these requirements and provide the transparency that clearly the government is looking for them to provide.
I guess the balance with these sort of changes is what's fair and reasonable for a local government. Also noting that local governments, particularly in WA, the resources available to them in terms of monetary and also staff vary hugely. So a metropolitan council has hundreds of staff members, significant rates of revenue, but there are a number of very small, under 5,000 population, sometimes even under 2,000 in population, local government authorities who another register to maintain, another record of CEO KPIs in a small country town where everybody knows everyone. I think there's questions being asked about, is that level of scrutiny for an individual member of public office, is that productive and helpful? Or will that result in those CEOs potentially focusing more on the KPI requirement and what that performance review is going to unveil than what's best for that local government and for that community?
Yeah, you make some very good points. It'll be interesting to watch how that plays out, and it'll be great to catch up with you down the track to see what you've observed as councils pick up on these requirements. Alice, it's been great to talk to you. It's good to have someone over there in Western Australia who's plugged into what's happening in the sector, and your perspective is slightly different in that you're providing a service, but at the same time, you need to know what's happening, don't you, so that you can be prepared to help councils meet those needs.
Absolutely. If we don't know what's happening in the market, we can't develop a thing to help local governments do better and do different. So it's really important to stay ahead of new updates and new legislative changes.
I'll invite you to give a plug as to how, there might be some East Coast Council people listening that would like to know about your offering if you're interested in moving into Victoria and New South Wales. How can people find out more?
So to find out more about Market Creations Agency, the easiest way would be to head to our website, marketcreations.com.au. Or if you're interested in learning more about the local government website solution that I was speaking to earlier, that's called councilconnect.com.au. In a couple of weeks' time, I'll actually be heading to South Australia to attend a local government conference over there. So I'm hoping to connect with, beyond just the city of Salisbury, some other South Australian local governments during that time. So towards the end of March is when I'm hoping to be there and meet some new connections.
Excellent. Good luck with all of that. Thank you, Alice, for your time. It's great to chat with you, and I hope we can talk again.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for your time.
Let's check in on some UK and New Zealand stories for our global report before we wrap up. There's a major shake-up of planning regulations in the wind in the UK. Ministers are set to announce sweeping changes that will strip local councillors of their powers to block most building projects. The Times reported that under new legislation to be unveiled this week by Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, councillors will only retain decision-making powers for the largest and most controversial developments. The government aims to accelerate housing construction and development projects by limiting political interference in planning decisions. Only schemes above a certain threshold potentially between 10 and 100 homes, will require councillor approval. Developers have welcomed the move as a potential breakthrough in speeding up construction, but the Local Government Association warns it could undermine democratic oversight and public trust in the planning system. In London, Mayor Sadiq Khan's controversial ultra-low emission zone policy has shown remarkable success according to a new City Hall study. Sky News reported that the data shows boroughs which initially opposed the ULEZ expansion have ironically benefited the most from the scheme. Areas like Sutton, Croydon and Merton have seen reductions of over 15% in nitrogen oxide levels. Mayor Khan told Sky News that the initiative isn't about restricting car use, but rather about tackling pollution. Stephen McCabe has been re-elected as leader of Inverclyde Council after assault charges against him were dropped, according to BBC News. That followed the resignation of interim leader Robert Moran due to health and family reasons. The council, under its new leadership, has recently set its 25-26 budget, which includes an 8.5% council tax increase. And Cambridge City Council's leader, Mike Davey, and Deputy Leader Alice Gilderdale have announced their plans to step down from their leadership roles in May. BBC News reported that Councillor Davey wants to focus on family and ward duties, while Gilderdale is moving away from the city. The announcement will trigger by-elections coinciding with the Cambridgeshire County Council and Combined Authority Mayor elections on the 1st of May. And in New Zealand, Auckland Mayor Wayne Brown is taking credit for a major reduction in debt and a profit increase at the Port of Auckland. Mayor Brown said last week he'd promised to get a better deal for ratepayers, and this is what delivery looks like: a reduction of more than $100 million in debt and a 98% increase in half-yearly profit. And West Coast Regional Council is taking a tough stance on non-compliant sewerage systems across the region, according to a report from One News. All 3 district councils on the West Coast have been put on notice to address issues with their wastewater treatment plants, with investigations revealing histories of non-compliance and unauthorised discharges. Regional Council Chief Executive Darryl Lewis says they can't turn a blind eye to district councils while taking action against other operators like dairy farmers and miners for illegal discharges. And that's the podcast for Monday the 10th of June 2025, edition number 437. If you have comments or feedback or story tips, you can email me at lgweeklynews@gmail.com. And more information about this episode, including the story links and a transcript, can be found at lgnewsroundup.com. The podcast is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association, your councillor support network, with support from Symphony 3, simple, connected customer experiences. And thanks to the many of you who support the podcast through a monthly subscription. Support starts at $3 per month, less than $5 Australian, and you can cancel your subscription at any time. Details on the website or in your podcast player. The Roundup is recorded in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. Until next time, thanks for listening, and bye for now. A councillor's commitment to community doesn't stop when their time as an elected representative ends. In recognition of this and to strengthen its ongoing support for former councillors, the VLGA has launched an alumni program open to anyone who has held an elected position in local government. By becoming a VLGA alumnus, former councillors will have access to VLGA programs and special alumni networking events, as well as the opportunity to participate in forums and share key learnings and insights to inform sector advocacy. You'll be kept up to date on local government news and be able to participate in VLGA events and professional development opportunities at a special VLGA alumni member rate. To find out more about this exciting opportunity, visit www.vlga.org.au.